Hey everyone, today is Wednesday, December 9th. The time is 3:42 p.m. and the temperature right now is 3 degrees Celsius. That is a look north up Yonge Street. I'm here at the intersection of Yonge and Church. Well, that would be Church Street on the east side. And on the west side would be Davenport Road. And there's a look at the Masonic Temple. And the plan for this one is to head south all the way down the entire length of Church Street to where it ends, just south of the Esplanade. I think this entire walk will be somewhere around 3.5 kilometers in length. And this section of Church Street that I'm on right now heads in the southeast direction. Just up ahead here, it'll bend to the right and head straight south. And I'll be passing through the Church-Wellesley Village, as well as the Garden District and the St. Lawrence neighborhood. And towards the end, we'll take a look at an original Banksy. There is Herald Town Park, a small parquet just by the foot of Church Street. There's a look down Collier Street. And that continues on the other side of Church Street, just past the Toronto Reference Library, which is directly in front of me right now. And there is King's Palace Restaurant. That's a Pakistani and Indian restaurant. It's mostly takeout, or at least these days it is. That's a popular spot among cab drivers late at night in the city. I looked it up on Yelp and saw that it has a 3-star review, so I'm not sure where that stands amongst that type of cuisine in the city. I've never been there. But I do know that King Place at Sherbourne and Dundas is one of the more popular spots for that kind of cuisine. And this here is Park Road. So this will head south just to Bloor Street. There's a car turning right. I think their indicator is broken. Either that or they don't know how to drive. So here's where Church Street starts to bend to the south. I just dropped my pointer. I use that on live streams when I'm wearing a glove to press the touch screen on my phone. And now Church Street is heading straight south. Just to the right here on Bloor Street is the Yonge Bloor subway station. That serves both Line 1 and Line 2. And I'm not sure what bus that is. Let's take a look once I get in front. And it says not in service. That's helpful. So this is Bloor Street East. We are on the east side of downtown. And that's a look to the west, and that tall building there is 1 Bloor East. It's soon to be joined by an even taller condo on the other side of the street. And now that I'm south of Bloor Street, most people would consider this to be downtown Toronto. And this area in between Church and I think Gerrard to the south, or maybe it's Carlton, I'm not too sure, is considered the Church-Wellesley Village. And that would be the home of the LGBTQ community here in the city.
Then the next step is actually setting up a meeting.
And just up here at Charles Street, on the northwest corner, is a very large condo development going up. And where you see Asahi Sushi, that used to be a semi. The other half of the home has been taken down. I think they need to preserve the facade of these buildings in the new condo. I remember seeing that it'll be over 50 stories. There might even be 2 of them going up. I'm not entirely sure on that. There's a look north. So I'm pretty sure the Church-Wellesley Village does go south to Gerrard. And usually every year at the end of June, it is home to the city's Pride Festival. At least this is where most of the main activities take place. Obviously, that was canceled for 2020, unfortunately. And I think it's one of the biggest Pride festivals of its kind, not just in North America, but in the world. And a few blocks to the south of here will be Wellesley Street. And you could access this neighborhood from Wellesley Station, which is just to the west of there. Running parallel to Church Street is Yonge Street, which would be probably the city's most well-known street that runs through downtown. And this here is Isabella. At some point during the summer, back in the good old days where you could actually go into a cafe or restaurant, or at least you could dine outdoors at them, I was filming a video and I stopped at this place on the cafe for a coffee, and I had a snack, I don't remember what it was, and then I recorded a live stream. Church Street is known for a trio of rather beautiful old churches on it, but it's named after St. James Cathedral, which was actually the first church in the former town of York. We'll be going by that. That's more towards the south end of the walk. And it looks like I'm dodging raindrops right now. Hopefully none get on the camera. It did snow earlier today, but I was asleep when that happened, so unfortunately I wasn't able to run outside and grab a video of it. Although I was watching on my computer today, a number of New York City-based walking channels were able to capture some snow videos and live streams, so that's kind of exciting for them. I think it was New York's first snowfall of the year. There's a place there called Death Burger, as well as Church Pizza, all occupying parts of that bar. Since they can't properly operate as a bar due to the government restrictions, it makes sense that they'd find some other uses for their kitchen. And this here is Barbara Hall Park. Barbara Hall is a former mayor of the city of Toronto. I think she was the second ever female mayor. There's someone's attempt at a snowman. I don't know what you'd call that. Some lumps of snow. And most of those towers you see dotting the skyline to the west of here are along Yonge Street. That's another entrance to Barbara Hall Park. Since Toronto is in what the province calls the lockdown phase, there is no dine-in service or outdoor restaurant service. There's also no in-store shopping at most retailers, which is quite unfortunate. And this is the intersection of Church and Wellesley, so this would sort of be the epicenter of the village. I'm just going to stay on the east side of the street. But just to the west down there is Wellesley Station. And that is the 94 Wellesley bus, so that'll turn north up to Castle Frank Station.
So you do not come over here?
You never know. No.
There's certainly no shortage of cannabis shops in the city these days. And this neighborhood in particular has a lot of outdoor patio spots. But because of these new restrictions, they're not able to even sit customers outside. I think this neighborhood got its start back in the late 70s and early 80s.
And then one day he came with me.
And in time, it has started to gentrify a fair bit, and rents have been increasing. Here's someone else who doesn't know how to use a turn signal. And there's been a lot of concern in recent years that a lot of these businesses aren't going to be able to maintain their presence in this neighborhood. And in turn, it's at risk of losing its unique character. And I'm sure this virus situation is definitely not helping. All right, this is Alexander Street, and it looks like I'll be crossing over to the west side of Church, as there's some construction here in front of Church Street Public School. And this is right around the spot where I've had a few live streams die on me. Doesn't seem to matter which mobile provider I use. I've tried 3 from here. Both TELUS and Rogers on their 5G networks, and Freedom Mobile on LTE, and all 3 have failed right around this spot. And this here is the backside of Maple Leaf Gardens. I've certainly talked about this building a number of times in prior videos. That's the former home of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and the site of the first ever National Basketball League game between the Toronto Huskies and the New York Knickerbockers, although the Huskies were a rather short-lived franchise. It's currently a Loblaw supermarket and a skating rink for Ryerson University, which is just to the south of here. So this is Carlton Street. Just to the east of here is the Cabbagetown neighborhood. I recently uploaded a bike ride that went all along Carlton Street and then across Yonge Street and along College Street. That's the look to the west along Carlton Street. I think that truck was trying to turn left and it's not supposed to, hence all the honking. Yeah, but it says no left turns Monday to Friday, 3:30 to 6:30. And where this condo stands used to be a popular bar that was a fixture in this neighborhood. That's an all too common theme these days in the city. I'm still upset that the Unicorn had to close down in my neighborhood near Yonge and Eglinton to make way for a condo. And you might notice there are streetcar tracks along this part of Church Street. Yet there is no streetcar service. In fact, you'll notice there's not even bus service. If I'm not mistaken, the bus service ended at some point in the mid-90s. I think 1996, it was the 19 Church Street bus. And there was a tram service from the 20s to 50s. I'm not sure exactly the story of why these streetcar tracks have been maintained. Perhaps someone in the comments can fill me in on that. And this part of town is known as the Garden District. That runs from Gerrard Street to the north of here. Or not Gerrard Street, Carlton Street, I think. And that'll head southbound to Queen. And then to the west, it's bound by Yonge Street. And to the east, Sherburne Street. And it's named after the Allen Gardens, which is a large park and botanical gardens. And this is the intersection of Church and Gerrard, and we are passing through the Ryerson University campus. Ryerson was established back in 1948. It was originally, I think, the Ryerson Institute of Technology. And as the school grew and evolved, in the early 1990s it gained university status. And it's since become one of three rather major universities in the city of Toronto. The biggest being U of T. I think there's over 60,000 students there in total, combining undergrads and postgrads. Next would be York University, where I went. That's just a little bit smaller. I think that's around 55,000 students. And not much smaller than that is Ryerson. I'm not sure the student count at Ryerson, but it's somewhere in the 40,000s. Back when I was in high school, it was known as Ryerson Polytechnic School. And I think it only had 20,000 or so students, so it's grown tremendously since then. We've also seen a very large shift in people wanting to live in the downtown core. So that might have had something to do with the desirability of Ryerson increasing. And this is Gould Street, and I think right there on the southwest corner is an old historic building. That dates back to the mid-1800s. So Ryerson's had to incorporate a lot of older buildings into their facility. And I think the style of that one would be considered Gothic Revival. It stands in stark contrast to the much more modern looking student housing just next to it. At least I think that's student housing. It might not be. That's certainly not a very pleasant sound. I think that's it right there. That small construction site is the cause of the headache. And the next major street to the south of here is Dundas Street. So just to the west of here is the rather famous Dundas Square, which throughout the pandemic has been a shell of its former self, along with much of downtown. There's not too many downtown gas stations left. And just looming off to the southwest here are the towers of the financial district. And just on the other side of this streetcar is a rather popular ramen restaurant. There's usually a fairly long line just to get in. But you can see the sign right there. They're open for takeout only right now. Hopefully they survive. I ordered ramen from a local restaurant at Yonge and Eglinton last night, and it was quite good. That is my fault there. I was a bit too far off the crosswalk. Since we're above zero, I don't think salting the road is all that necessary, but that's what that truck is doing. And the first of the three main churches along Church is just up here on the right, although I think this one, its formal address is on Bond Street. And that is St. Michael's Basilica. It looks like it's undergoing a fairly extensive refurbishment. That is the Cathedral Rectory right there. There's a row of older buildings. Those probably date back to the mid to late 1800s. And a new condo has been incorporated onto the corner there. Although I'm not a fan of condos that don't have balconies. It actually says condo rentals. So it's possible this is actually a rental building, or perhaps a mix.
But
So this is Shooter Street. Just to the east or west of here is St. Joe's Hospital, and there's St. Michael's Basilica. Maybe I'll cross over to the other side here. And there's the Metropolitan United Church. That's a rather old one as well. That goes back to 1872. I know that as I've walked by a number of times on previous videos and looked at the plaque in front. And I think I just walked by the Jazz Condominium, which is notable as it incorporates an older building from the 1800s in the facade. Although I guess I didn't get the best look at that. Madame's Jewelers and Pawnbrokers. There's some people there. It looks like they're open, but I don't think this would be considered an essential business, so they would have to do curbside pickup only. And this is Church and Queen I'm approaching. I'll take a look back at the Metropolitan United Church. That's a look west down Queen Street. And there's Henry's, perhaps the most well-known camera store in the city. And this is Richmond Street, so just to the west, which is to my right, is the financial district. And there's the Golden Tie. I remember eating there. It was quite good. I don't quite remember when it went out of business, but it's entirely possible it was another victim of the virus. And if you were to turn back the clock about 10 years, this condo here, Spire, was easily one of the tallest in the area. I had some friends who used to live in there. And if the economy starts to recover early next year, I think we'll start to see more and more of these parking lots start to disappear. A lot of them in this area sort of hold their value because of their proximity to St. Mike's Hospital. And this is Adelaide Street. And just ahead of me here is St. James Cathedral. And it looks like there's some kind of TV or movie shoot going on. So this is the property that Church Street got its name from. It was the original church in the town of York. It was originally a wooden building, and that was built in 1807, and it was later replaced by a stone building. That was destroyed in the Great Fire that ravaged much of this part of town. The Great Fire occurred in 1849, and then they started rebuilding the property into the church you see before me right now. And this was fully completed, including the rather magnificent spire on top of it. in 1874. Maybe I can verify that on a plaque. Some of these dates are just stuck in my head from prior walks around this neighborhood. All right, so it says this one was erected in 1853, but I think the spire wasn't completed until 1874. And there's an extremely nice park just on the east side of the property. This would have to be the most well-known and photogenic church in the city. We don't have too many of these old buildings that can hold a candle to what they have in many parts of Europe and even the province of Quebec in cities like Quebec City and Montreal, but this is certainly one of them. That's the 504 King Street streetcar. And this area is sometimes referred to as Old Toronto, or rather the St. Lawrence Market neighborhood. Of course, named after the St. Lawrence Market, which is just to the east of here at Jarvis and Front Street. And when people ask me what my favorite neighborhood is in the city, often on the live streams, I'll say I'm kind of torn between living around the Annex in Koreatown and this neighborhood. I always wonder what's going through the minds of people when they walk on the left side of the sidewalk directly into oncoming people when there's plenty of room. Last I checked, we stick to the right in this country, but that'll just have to remain a mystery. So on the left here is the Hot House. This is a neighborhood institution. I've eaten there numerous times. And this is Front Street East. It looks like I'm going to get hung up halfway across the street, but that's okay. There's a rather iconic look. That's the Gooderham building, otherwise known as the Flatiron. It's one of a few Flatiron buildings in Toronto. This is, of course, the oldest one. And that building was built in 1892. I am not just reading that off this plaque right here. And Gooderham is known for the Gooderham and Worts distillery, which is located well off to the east of here at the Distillery District, probably a 10-minute or so walk. And I have read that they have proposed a new Flatiron building to go up in the Liberty Village area in King West. And we're almost at the end of Church Street. I just want to cross over to the other side so we can get a look at that Banksy artwork that's done as part of the Goose Island craft brewery. I don't know if Goose Island could be considered a craft brewery. It's a rather major player these days. And one of these buildings here is an old Toronto cold storage facility. I think that was 9 Church Street. I might be wrong on that. And there is the Banksy. I don't quite remember when this went in. And normally this street, the Esplanade, this section would be full of outdoor patios. But of course the province has put the kibosh on those. That was actually the last place I ate outdoors. The second last place I ate was at the Keg, which is just down the street from there. And even though it was a colder night, it was a rather nice experience. It was heated quite nicely. Service was excellent. I don't think there was really any safety concerns. I've expressed my opinions before, but I think it's rather stupid that the government is targeting these small businesses, but allowing certain large businesses to still operate as normal. And here we are at Conger Coal Lane. I couldn't tell you the story of this street name. And this is the end of Church Street. So I started where it begins at Church and Yonge and came mostly south all the way to the southern end of the street. I hope you enjoyed this journey as I tried to ramble on a bit about various topics along the way. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you would like to support the channel, there are links to my Instagram account and Patreon account in the description. You can also check out channel memberships from the main YouTube page. And I'd like to thank everyone who has recently subscribed, as the channel has just hit 30,000 subscribers. All right. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will catch you on the next one.